We now welcome our fifth and final speaker, Dr. Nora Amath, the Co-Executive Director of the Islamophobia Register of Australia. Dr. Nora is a sociologist whose research and work focuses on multiculturalism, social inclusion, diversity, leadership, and community development. Thank you, Dr. Nora.
Thank you, Ed. Auzubillah min ash-shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most beneficent, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May God's peace, blessing, and mercy be upon you all. This land has always been Aboriginal land. Sovereignty was never ceded, and that truth is not symbolic, it's foundational. When I speak of racism, dispossession, and state violence, I do so knowing that these are not distant concepts, they are lived realities for First Nations peoples every single day. Colonization did not end, it adapted. As historian Patrick Wolf reminds us, and I quote, "Colonization is not an event, it is a structure," end quote. It lives in forced removals, over-policing, stolen children, and the silencing of truth-telling, like in our own state. It lives in the fact that we gather tonight on land that was taken, not given. Before we speak of justice elsewhere, we must first honor the struggle for justice here, because the fight against racism begins on this very soil. My name is Nora Amath, and I'm the Co-Executive Director of the Islamophobia Register Australia. For over 11 years, our pioneering organization has documented, researched, and responded to incidents of anti-Muslim hate and racism across the country. We support victims, collaborate with communities, and advocate for systemic change. But let me be clear. My work is not only about Islamophobia. It is about justice. It is about dismantling racism in all its forms, not exceptionalizing any, including Islamophobia. We cannot claim to be anti-racist if we only speak when our own community is targeted. In fact, the vision statement of the Islamophobia Register Australia is simple and clear, and I quote, "An inclusive and just Australian society," end quote. Our goal is justice, not selective outrage. That's why in many of our press releases, we've called out all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism. At the Islamophobia Register Australia, in the first 3 weeks after the 7th of October 2023, reported incidents rose by a staggering 1,300%. Let me break down the data for you. Before the 7th of October, we were seeing about 2.5 incidents reported to us per week, 2.5 incidents. In the first 3 weeks after the 7th of October, we received over 35 incidents per week. 2 years on, reported incidents remain at 530% higher than before, with now over about 15 incidents reported weekly. And this still underrepresents the reality of what we hear across Australia. Yet some leaders still claim that Islamophobia is fictitious or non-existent. But we know otherwise, not just from the data that I just mentioned, but from the voices of victims, frightened, angry, and exhausted. Let me share a few stories, and please note the trigger warning. 2 visibly Muslim women, newly arrived from Gaza, were brutally attacked at a bus stop with their young children. The perpetrators followed them onto the bus, spat on them, verbally abused them, lunged at them with a broken glass bottle, and urged others to, and I quote, "kill them because they are Muslims," end quote. The bus driver did nothing. In February this year, a young Muslim woman leaving a grocery store was punched so violently she hit the ground and is still receiving medical and mental health support. She was the second Muslim woman attacked by the same perpetrator within a 10-minute time frame. She told me she now lives in constant fear. Just this month, an Islamic school in Brisbane and a mosque on the Gold Coast received bomb threats. One email read, and I quote, "I'm going to blow up your school. I've had it with you Muslims, ruining our gene pool and stealing our jobs. I'm going to stab every little Muslim male or girl at that place," end quote. Yet Queensland police did not deem this Islamophobic. These are not isolated events. They reflect a wider climate where Islamophobia is normalized and where those with perceived Muslim connections, including pro-Palestinian supporters, are dehumanized, where their lives simply do not matter. As executive director of the Islamophobia Register, I'm often asked why I speak out, not just against Islamophobia, but against all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism, anti-Asian racism, anti-Blackness, and racism against First Nations people. Or why we collaborate freely with other organizations like the Anti-Racism Register in Western Australia. The answer is simple. Racism is interconnected. If I only defend Muslims, I'm not practicing anti-racism. I'm practicing self-interest. By highlighting and responding to multiple forms of racism, I'm not weakening the urgency of Islamophobia, and I can tell you it is an urgent matter. But I'm showing that anti-racism must be comprehensive. The same structures that demonize Muslims uphold anti-Semitism. The same dehumanizing language used against Palestinians was once used against Aboriginal people to justify dispossession. Think of terra nullius, Latin for land which belongs to no one, which erased the existence of First Nations peoples to legitimize colonial theft. They were spoken of as if their history were non-existent, their lives dispensable. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Aboriginal people were called savages, primitive, uncivilized, language used to justify massacres, forced removals, and stolen generations. Other communities, including the Palestinians in the past and today, are labeled terrorists, animals, barbaric, rhetoric that makes it easier to bomb homes, schools, universities, hospitals, refugee camps, maim and murder people. This rhetoric is deliberate. It strips people of their humanity so violence feels justified, and it is recycled generation after generation, conflict after conflict, genocide after genocide, including against my own people, the Cham people in Cambodia. So when I speak out against Islamophobia, I must also speak out against all forms of racism, because anti-racism is indivisible. It is not enough to not be a racist. I hear this often. I'm not a racist. How could I be a racist? I'm married to an Asian, an African, et cetera, et cetera. Anti-racism is not passive. It is active. It is intentional. It is a daily commitment to dismantling the systems that produce and protect racial injustice. Being anti-racist means refusing to be neutral in the face of oppression. Silence is not safety, it is complicity. Racism is not just interpersonal, it is institutional and systemic. Sometimes it is so indirect, so insidious that you may not recognize it immediately. It is just part of the policy. It is part of the spending that we must need to cut. It is you don't belong as part of our work culture. Our response must therefore be layered, nuanced, and relentless. A good ally does not show up when it is easy or popular. They don't say I oppose injustice, but it is just too complicated what's happening in the Middle East. They don't wait for permission to speak. They speak because it is right. Being anti-racist means challenging your workplace, your school, your university, your friends, your family, your faith community. It means refusing tokenism, selective outrage, and the comfort of silence. It also means recognizing your own privileges, not to feel guilt, but responsibility. Even as a Muslim woman, I know that there are places where I hold privilege, and I must use that to challenge the systems that protect me but harm others. If there's one message that I want to leave tonight, it is this: none of our communities alone can dismantle racism. We need each other. For nearly 25 years working in this anti-racism space, I can't emphasize this enough. We need each other. The ongoing genocide, and it is a genocide, and let's call it out for what it is, has reminded us of how dangerous dehumanization is. When people are spoken of as if their lives don't matter, atrocities follow, genocide happens. Racism thrives in division, but solidarity, and I've heard this throughout all the panelists, dismantles it. So let us commit to building bridges between our communities. Let us commit to showing up for each other's struggles, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is difficult. Let us commit to speaking truth to power, even if it costs us. Because to be anti-racist is not a slogan, it is a daily practice, it is an act of courage, and it is ultimately an act of love, an act of humanity. Friends, I want to end tonight with the words of Desmond Tutu when he says, "My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together," end quote. Thank you.